Hello to all and a very warm welcome. Today we're going to talk about Rome and Babylon and Revelation. I was prompted to do this by someone who commented on one of the other videos there I'd only put out recently. I think it's really important to take Revelation really and look at it because it's a unique part of the New Testament. I'm fairly confident it's a Jewish text. It's pre most of it anyway. From about 4 to 22 is a Jewish text, and it wasn't really originally referencing Rome as the great beast. We're going to go through exactly why I think that that's the case. It might have been subtly edited to enter the Nero 666 and the Seven Hills references there, but there are actually multiple ways to read the number here, 666. It was already firmly established in Jewish theology, mythology, Kabbalah, and so on. And 7 is a number we find all over the Old Testament as well. And there are actually quite a few examples of why we wouldn't necessarily put Rome at the center of what the Jews were talking about, and some fairly obvious ones as well. So originally a Jewish text edited in around the first to the mid-2nd century, like so many of these other texts are, then compiled into the New Testament for when Irenaeus comes out and says 4 formal canonical Gospels and the other epistolary material, and books like Hebrews and Revelation here. So the executive thesis I'm putting forward here is Revelation's Babylon is best understood as an archetypal, temple-centric and cosmic symbol carried over from Jewish apocalyptic tradition, not as a code name for Rome in the book's original stratum. Later Christian readers, 2nd to the 4th century CE, increasingly reinterpreted it with Rome in mind. This document assembles linguistic, textual and historical and thematical evidence to show that Rome was not the original object of the text. It came to be, but was not the original. Internal text signals that cut against the Roman target. 1. The great city where the Lord was crucified, Revelation 11 and 8. So this great city, John explicitly locates a key scene in the city where Jesus was crucified, so Jerusalem. Even symbolically labeled Sodom and Egypt, the geographic anchor is Judea, not Rome. The books, and this would have likely been added in or to reference a Jesus crucified. The book's emotional and cultic center of gravity is the temple, altar, ark, priests, incense, and heavenly sanctuary, not the imperial forum, senate, or legions. All earthly kings are not one empire. So the kings of the earth and all nations repeatedly align with the beast. The beast brought up in Revelation. The narrative condemns world rule as such, not a single polity. Babylon functions as the archetype of human empire under demonic influence. So it's just archetypal speech, like so much of this poetic language in these texts, prophetic texts and so on. Lack of Roman concreteness. No emperor is named, no imperial office or Latin loan terms are used. No realistic description of Roman civic or military life appears. Of course, it's very poetic, but you still see no idioms, nothing concretely asserting, no language even really asserting anything even remotely to do with a Roman context. It's text, in texts that truly satirize Rome, e.g., later the Sibylline oracles, Sibylline oracles. Roman specifics are explicit. Revelation is mythic rather than documentary. Linguistic and stylistic evidence, Hebraic, Greek, not Roman. Polemic So the translation like Greek. Revelation's Greek is notoriously Semitic, replete with solecisms, Hebraic word order, Semitic preposition usage. This is exactly what one expects from a Hebrew Aramaic base of a written thinking, like a written text, like thinking in Hebrew. Okay, so it's quite clearly patched over to Greek from the original Hebrew. So it's old. It might well be that the core of this is BC's, goes back. Septuagintal affinity on stylometric and lexical grounds. The book's core vision cycles, Revolution 4 to 22, align most closely with the Greek of the Septuagint translations and with books like Daniel, Ezekiel, Zechariah, Ruth, and Jonah. Okay, this pattern signals a Jewish apocalyptic matrix rather than a Greco-Roman pamphlet. Okay, temple and priestly diction. The lexicon clusters around throne, altar, incense, ark, lampshades, priests, holy city, New Jerusalem, terms native to Israel's cultic world rather than to Roman administrations to symbolize, again, this affinity here with a Hebrew worldview, not Rome, or not really even symbolic here of talking about Rome. This architecture, symbolic architecture, this cosmic first, polemical, if at all, after. Okay, so 3 here. Sorry, again, the sevenfold cycle, seals, trumpets, bowls. Remember this: 7 trumpets, 7 seals, and so on. Going to this 7. These track sacred cosmic sevens, planets, heavens, creations, not imperial bureaucracies, the lambs unsealing parallels, cosmic disclosure more than political reportage. Okay, astral tablature. The woman clothed with the sun, the moon beneath her feet. The dragon sweeps the stars. This is zodiacal, a celestial drama, Virgo, Leo, and Draco. Okay, long used in Jewish apocalyptic thinking. The scale of conflict is heavenly. Michael versus the dragon, not merely imperial, right? Big, lofty, mythic storytelling. Numerology is sacred geometry here. The recurrent numbers 7, 12, 24, 144,000 and 1,000 are symbolic of completeness, tribes, priestly orders and millennial epochs. This numerology or numerological lattice belongs to temple cosmic symbolism, not to Roman bookkeeping, that kind of lexicon. Historical trajectory and reception, so dating gap. An early silence. Revelation is largely absent from the earliest Christian writers and only surfaces clearly in the mid-2nd century with Justin Martyr, a book aimed squarely at Rome during the 1st century persecutions could have left clearer early footprints if it were read as anti-Roman. Of course it could. 70, the big... the anti-Roman, the destruction of the temple. Decades leading up to this point, we get with the Second Jewish War, the Jewish War. Sorry, patristic rereadings. Jesus, 2nd to 4th century here. From the mid-2nd century onwards, leading fathers begin mapping the Danielic 4th Empire onto Rome. Okay, so in the mid-2nd century, the Roman, and many of them later, the Roman Babylon kind of connection here. Reading crystallized in this period precisely when Christians' experience of the empire here sharpens under Constantine, and Eusebius is further domesticated into an imperial-friendly fulfillment reading. So Eusebius tries to dampen this when he comes along. No, these guys were wrong. It's nothing to do with Rome. The composite authorship layers support reinterpretation. Okay, so if Revelation 4 to 22 preserves a Jewish apocalypse, later framed by Christian materials. So here having Revelation 1, 2 and 3 with a Christian writer, like as a preamble here, as an introduction by a Christian, that's then slammed into the beginning of the later Jewish text. That of course used to happen quite often. The door is open for later communities to supply historical reference, like Rome, that were not present in the earlier layer. Counter arguments on why they fail. So the 7 hills must mean Rome. Revelation 17:9. 7 mountains is as at home in apocalyptic cosmology. 7 heavens, 7 planets, 7 trumpets, 7, many sevens. As it is in topography, in context, the heads are also 7 kings, merging cosmic and symbolic readings. The text does not require this toponym, Rome. So it doesn't require that. 666. We already know that this is the number of the beast here already. Nero Caesar, therefore Rome. Gematria works with many names across languages. 616 is also attested. The number operates primarily as symbolic branding of the beast's character. Triplet imperfection within an apocalyptic numerology, the only secondarily, if at all, as a cipher for a specific emperor. And you had some to pick from. A flexible cipher does not establish authorial fixation on Rome. And Nero, this fixation on Nero as a bad emperor is likely mostly made up by Christians later on, and we've been through this. Lots of the things that later are then patched onto Rome, Nero's bad, bad Nero for doing this and that to the Christians, probably never happened in history. He had a go at some Jews for sure. He was a naughty, nasty man for sure, but he was also not as bad as some of those emperors. Babylon equals the current superpower by default. In Jewish scripture and apocalyptic, Babylon is a reusable type for empire under judgment. Assyria, Babylon, Seleucids. The author's source field is Daniel, Ezekiel, not Roman historiography. So it doesn't have to be that Babylon equals, of course, the current superpower. It's not. No, it's archetypal. It can mean, or it could mean Rome, but it didn't have to mean this. It was already there as the bad kingdom, the evil kingdom, ruled by the sons of darkness, or the prince of darkness, say Satan. Persecutions prove a Roman referent. The text's horizon is global and cosmic. Many kings and nations are in view. Suffering churches can find Rome in the text, but that is reader application, not necessarily authorial intention. So 6, again, not too much longer now. Positive modal with Babylon originally meant in Revelation. So temple centric apostasy and oppression in the long prophetic arc, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, now projected into a cosmic stage. Okay, not necessarily again. Archetypal empire, energized by the dragon, any world power that sacralizes violence and commerce against the holy. So again, heaven, earth drama culminating in the descent of the new Jerusalem, not a new Rome. Restoration is framed in Israel's prophetic symbols, not an imperial one. And again, we are going to make the case that people believe this later on, but so cumulative case, the concise version of this, the book's own pointer, Revelation 11:8 anchors its drama in Jerusalem, in temple symbolism, and probably this is a text that harkens back to pre-70 CE, maybe the BCs. No Roman names or Latinisms, no imperial realism. And just very quickly, that's why we get the language here from the Septuagint, this crossover language in the Greek now, but from a Septuagint translations, and with these stylometry and stuff, stylometrics. And the Hebraic, Greek, and LXX-like diction points to a Jewish apocalyptic substrata, cosmic architecture, astral signs, sacred numbers, dwarfs any single empire. Okay, early reception is late and then increasingly Romanizing, consistent with reinterpretation rather than original intent. Flexible ciphers, 7 hills, 666, 16 are compatible with a typological beast, not a fixed Roman ID. Okay, it's coincidental. It's interestingly coincidental, but here's an interesting thing as well. I put this, of course, as I want to do, through a Bayesian calculator and probabilistic assessment, Bayesian style, right? Prior neutrality, so 50-50. What can we say about this? Well, if we start at 50-50, that's a reasonable start here, given it's basically a Jewish-looking material here. It seems to be quite Hebraic and apocalyptic, so Jewish 50-50. What's it talking about? There's strong updates from language, so LXX affinity, so Septuagint affinity, cosmic architecture, and internal pointers push the posterior heavily away from the Roman original, but we're going to go 50-50. The posterior, 80 to 90%, that Revelation's original Babylon is archetypal, cosmic within Jewish apocalyptic idiom, not Rome, which would be about 10 to 20%. That Rome is a secondary or reader-driven mapping. Okay, timeline of interpretive shift, bird's eye view here, Jewish apocalyptic matrix, pre-Christian core. So most of the bulk of the text is pre-Christian with a preamble or an introduction at the front, which is more Christianized. Archetypal empire, temple, cosmic symbolism, early Christian framing here. So 2nd century, mid-2nd century, Jesus language added, the churches are then exhorted. Patristic Romanization, later 2nd and 3rd centuries, now beast Babylon read as Rome, Nero, especially under persecutions that came later. Imperial domestication, 4th century, prophecy reframed and fulfilled under a Christian empire now, and so it goes back to being not about Rome. Allegorization grows thereafter. So again, that becomes more popular again. The bottom line, every major evidential stream, internal geography, diction, grammar, source of allusions, numerology, cosmology, reception in history, converges on the same conclusion. Babylon in Revelation was not originally Roman. Revelation is an astrotheological, hugely allegorical document anyway. Rome is a late, context-driven interpretation layered into a fundamentally Jewish cosmic apocalypse. The critical epilogue, so the patristic interpretations and the reinvention here, linguistic and cultural disconnection. So I won't actually, I'm not going to go through this, but Hippolytus, Irenaeus, and so on, they do tend towards wanting this to be about Rome now, but they're quite happy to praise Rome in other of their writings. So again, even with this, the fathers here, I'll just read the modern verdict. Contemporary textual and linguistic research disproves the patristic premise here from these fathers. Revelation's grammar, lexicon, and structure are pre-Christian Hebraic. The fathers' Roman interpretation arose from theological need, not textual fidelity. So even here, it doesn't push the marker when we did the Bayesian analysis anywhere. Fathers correctly preserving original Roman intent, so 15%, so that they got it right. Fathers speculating and recoding text for their age, 85%. Again, it has no bearing on these things. You can find their own, that really comes down to, that 666 or 616 motif there, that sigil symbol cipher, and also the 7 hills thing. But 7s are just flagrantly important to Jews. They're used ubiquitously in Jewish literature. So, and also I just want to very quickly say that in Christ before Jesus, the style and metrics really come down heavily on this this viewpoint as well. I was trying to find like some kind of quote here from this book by Brett and Matthew Britt and the other fellow there. A really great book. And they say the same things here, that the core of the text in Revelation is like really pre-Christian, and it was messed around with, and then it comes fairly well, like basically together in the mid part of the 2nd century. In the 150s-ish, 160s maybe, Justin Martyr is talking about it, and it's all Rome-oriented. It's all a lot of these constellations here with so many of these texts that became New Testamental are really coming from Rome, and this makes a lot of sense if we can agree here that even the Gospels really encode Roman propaganda massively, and they do. So, peace out. I'll leave that there, and we're going to come back and we're going to start talking about the more mystical, spiritual, and like the things that we can really utilize in our own life here, and understanding what Jesus, this beautiful, epic mystery of mysteries, Jesus Christ really is, because he's right here and he's right in you, and it's bigger than just a guy, let's be honest. All right, peace out.